Just another Thinkpad session. Well, so this year it is not just another Thinkpad session, not just another masterclass, and not just another award ceremony. This year it is a celebration of aspirations, a celebration of appreciation, conviction, commitment, hard work, and dreams, ladies and gentlemen. And now let's hear it for Spiritz Magazine. Come on. Yes, because this completion of 10 years means a lot to us. And if I talk about Spiritz Magazine, ladies and gentlemen, it was back in the year 2009 that these two wonderful people, Mr. Bishan Kumar and Mrs. Shalini Kumar, decided to quit their well-paid jobs in media and journalism and start something like this. And today, what we see here is the effort, is their effort. It is the result of their conviction, their courage, and their hard work. Let's give them a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Well, so what do you say? Are you all ready, all set to kickstart this day? Come on, let's hear it. Are you all ready? Okay, and so are we. We are super excited to kickstart this day. Let's light the ceremonial lamp on this happy note and kickstart this day. Can I now invite on stage to light the lamp the High Commissioner of the Republic of Fiji, His Excellency, Mr. Yogesh Punja, as our chief guest. Can I please have him on the stage along with Mr. Bishan Kumar and Mrs. Shalini Kumar to join them for the lamp lighting ceremony? Can I also have on stage Ms. Nirupama Sundararajan, Senior Fellow, Pahle India Foundation, to join them for the lamp lighting? Can I also invite on stage Mr. Arun Kumar, co-founder and director, Spiritz. Well, to join them for the lamp lighting, let's also have on stage Mr. Rahul Singh, founder and CEO of the Beer Cafe. Can I also request Mr. Ashwin Baribara, Director Cheers Group, to join us on the stage? And last but not the least, to complete the picture, can I also have Mr. Paritosh Pandari, founder, Triple Brands Limited, to join us on the stage and light the ceremonial lamp so that we can kickstart this day. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this marks the auspicious beginning of Spiritz 2019. Let's give them a huge round of applause and kickstart this auspicious day. Well, I'd request all of you to please be seated. Well, in this wonderful, exciting, engaging, fun-filled day, I'll be the little bling, the little shine, your host for the day, MC Tharna. And once again, I welcome all of you on behalf of Spiritz Magazine to Spiritz 2019, powered by Manohar Packaging. And ladies and gentlemen, it is a bliss having all of you here with us today. Well, So as I mentioned, this day is all about celebration, and let's begin the celebration with a very small little thing. I'd request all of you to turn to either of your sides, right or left, and shake hands with the person sitting next to you. It's all about circulating positive energy. Come on, let's just do it for next 20 seconds. Well, the only motto of this day is to bring a beautiful smile on all your pretty faces. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. And as I mentioned, this is going to be an engaging day, fun-filled day. Yes, it's going to be fun. And we would be starting this day with the Thinkpad session, along with masterclasses, along with Chef's Challenge, and we're going to step into the evening with a gala awards night. So this year it is going to be grand, it's going to be better, and it has been getting better with each passing year, ladies and gentlemen. So let me ask all of you, are you ready to start the first Thinkpad session? What do you say? Because we are going to have panel discussions on the most relevant topics we can think of within alcobev industry. So ladies and gentlemen, without any further delay, let me start the first Thinkpad session. And for the first session, the topic is a catalyst of growth, alcohol, a part of the integrated value chain. And can I now request the moderator for this session, Ms. Nirupama Sundararajan, Senior Fellow, Pahle India Foundation, to join us on the stage. Well, Nirupama has a repertoire of experience in finance and associated subsectors over the years. With her passion and dedication, she became known face in public policy research on finance. Nirupama, it is a pleasure having you here with us. Can I now have on stage our panelists for this session, Mr. Arun Kumar, co-founder and director at Spiritz. He is a known figure in the international alcobev industry. He has had a multifaceted career with various leading roles spanning over many years and with massive global exposure. It is a pleasure having you here, Mr. Arun Kumar. Well, to join the panel, can I now call on stage Mr. Rahul Singh, founder and CEO of the Beer Cafe, ex-president NRAI. He is a professional turned entrepreneur. Rahul is the founder and CEO of the Beer Cafe, India's favorite, largest, fastest, and the most awarded alcohol beverage services brand in India. To join them in a panel, can I now request Mr. Ashwin Baliwada, Director, Cheers Group, to join us on the stage. Ashwin leads the strategy, sales, and marketing for the Cheers Group. He is instrumental in successful brand launches and sales execution across premium and super premium segments, including super successful blockbuster brand Labrador blended Scotch whiskey. Well, to complete this panel, last but not the least, let me now call on stage Mr. Paritosh Pandari, founder, Triple Brands Limited, United Kingdom. After 15 years of his executive experience with multiple international companies and several illustrious brands, he quit his full-time role in 2014 and he turned an entrepreneur. So ladies and gentlemen, it is such a pleasure having you here for the first Thinkpad session. And now over to Nirupama.
Thank you, Dharna. Good morning. So this is my first time in a Spiritz conference, and I'm quite delighted to be here because it's a topic that usually academics like mine don't get to discuss. But since we did have the pleasure of doing a report on ease of doing business in the alcohol beverage sector, along with that of sugar and tourism, I guess that's why I'm here. So thank you all as well for being here. I think the point of why we did the study when we began was that when you look at the alcobev sector, the conversations around the alcobev sector, usually they have to do with the moral of it, the moral of the business, and everything revolves around that particular tenor and tone. What we wanted to do was to put together a report that recognized the sector for its economic right, for its economic contribution, and what it can do for the to even in today's context of India's target of a 5 trillion economy, what is it that the alcobev sector can do? So I think that's basically how I want to start off. Now, maybe Rahul, I'll start with you because you come from the front end of it as somebody who owns Beer Cafe and runs so many chains. What do you think you bring to the economy? Where do you see contribution? What is it in terms of tax collection, tax contributions, and more importantly, employment?
Good morning. The first sessions are when you're most energetic, so the energy is absolutely there. One of the things is I'm a professional turned entrepreneur. I was working in a 9-to-5 job for almost 15 years, and now it's been about 12 years of being an entrepreneur. But I was in the business of being healthy. I was in the sportswear industry, and the idea was I wanted to contribute in a way that, contribute towards health, and that's a social cause. And I was just talking to Mona, and she gave me a new word and says, we are doing a social cause to an alcohol beverage. So I think the healthy has become happy now. So I'm in the happy business. We make people happy, and that's what alcohol beverage does. Everything in moderation. If I exercise 5 hours a day, I won't be that healthy, okay? If I drink 5 straights, I won't be as happy. I will be happier, maybe. But coming from a perspective, yes, we are in this business. It is a social cause. States depend on us. You know that, and we all know that. I think we don't have to talk about what the contribution of this industry is. But where is it changing? From a perspective, I think the consumer is changing. My son's 19. He's just gone into legal drinking age in about 7 states in India. And 6 he can't drink, and then other states he can drink when he's 21, some 23, and then some 25. So he's anyway confused as, what the hell, my rights change every 5 kilometers in India. So I said, yeah, welcome to the alcohol beverage sector. But coming from a perspective, I think this new generation is going to make the change. The change comes from there. And that is where the change is coming. They're drinking moderately. They're actually going towards taste more than testosterone. We can see that happen. And our industry, which is very beer for me, is all about craft, and it's all about the art of beer. And I think the whole days of chugging has moved to loving. And that's the change which I think will happen. And I personally believe that the change will come from there. And I see that change. We have 1 million people coming in and drinking beer. We see that change. I don't have a single police case against me. I don't have a single bouncer. I don't have a guard. I'm dealing with alcohol beverage. We have no issues, which means it's the kind of people who come and enjoy themselves or experience the right products is what it is. So I think that is the change we bring to the table. That change is coming from the front end. Now, when it comes to the government policies, the only way to do this, as we know, constitutionally, it's a state subject. So whatever we might do on ease of doing business, at the moment as we speak, there's a hospitality meeting being conducted by the new Secretary of DPIIT, Mr. Mohapatra, which is happening right now, and a lot of my colleagues are already there from the tourism and hospitality industry. And that will continue to happen. India is on 63rd today in 2019, and we want to actually cross that 50 barrier and be below 50. I think our industry in the alcohol beverage is a big contributor, and we need to bring ourselves into the ease of doing business. We need to be one of the strikes. So I'm saying when you do ease of doing business, as you know, I think the excise policies and the state policies have to also become part of it, like we were discussing in the morning. The moment we are part of that, the government will have to move in that direction, Look at tourism today. 9% of India's GDP is on T&T, travel and tourism. 8.7% is the contribution to employment. So what India needs is investments and employment, and we're providing that from a tourism point of view, from hospitality point of view, from a product point of view, which is alcohol beverage. So I think we all know this at the end of the day. The idea here is to actually, thanks to the Thinkpad, we all get together and actually become more resolute in this mission that we are to make people happy. It is a social service we're doing, guys, and that is what I will continue to do till I can keep drinking. So that's my part of it.
Thanks. If I can ask you, in India, it's not, especially because alcohol is a state subject, and you have to deal with multiple state governments, and the result of which is also the impact on business. So how do you deal with that? How do you deal with as many markets as they are, and as opposed to one country or a central law? How is that experience?
Well, good morning, everybody. Well, in one word, if you want to ask me to say something, it's frustrating. Okay. Sometimes some states perhaps are a bit more progressive, so they're obviously in a different state. But some of them are fairly regressive in nature in terms of how to do business. But complexity of India is also because of its geographies, and also I think constitutionally, as Rahul mentioned, it's a state subject, so that makes it even more complicated. So as he says, you know, every 5 kilometers, as if the laws are going to be changing, and that's exactly what happens to us as well.
It's on, it's on. Just hold it.
So it becomes a bit more difficult. You know, every 20 kilometers, I mean, take the case of Delhi, you know, you just drive about 10 kilometers from here, the state laws change, and obviously different laws, legal drinking ages change. So it can get fairly frustrating purely because there is no uniformity in terms of laws, number one. So there's nothing which is seamless. So borders itself act as barriers sometimes, and especially for movement of goods from one state to the other, and especially when they have to cross multiple states to reach their destination. At the back end, it becomes extremely difficult. Primarily, I think, whilst I think there is a younger generation of bureaucrats who are coming into the system today, they perhaps are a bit more progressive in thinking. But I think they are also bound by the powers above, and especially the political establishment, because generally alcohol generally is a subject which is taboo, but they all like to drink.
Fair enough.
Yeah, so frustrating. Some states have made an improvement in terms of actually approaching them, talking to them. They are willing to take suggestions from us as an industry itself and make laws a bit more sensible. So in one word, this is one of my favorite statements which I always use all the time when I think about it, is I bring the laws in India and make a similarity with the traffic signals in this country. Okay, red, amber, and green. So red means you can't do it, green means you can do it, amber means somewhere. So the laws in India, unfortunately, in most of the states today are in the amber zone. So when you read the law, you think, yes, you can do it. So that's my interpretation, sensible interpretation. Yeah, or you can't do it, we do it. But the other end, the interpreter, people who have made the law on the other end, so whatever you do, the power is there with the interpreter to actually decide whether you've done right or wrong.
Give me an example of this. Give me one example where it is that kind of.
No, there's multiple examples. I mean, simplistically put, I think even in the city of Delhi as we are sitting, okay, now the law states that you cannot promote, advertise, do anything in the hotels and bar space. But we see a lot of companies still putting their subtle branding. So if the law states that, then why is it that we are seeing branding?
Fair enough.
So somewhere there is an anomaly. So at the end of the day means what? Look the other way so you can do what you want. But ideally we see that, I mean, we are seeing a lot of instances in nowadays, especially in Delhi as well as a classic example. So you are never sure if what you do is correct, because somebody else will come back and tell you that is not correct. And we have had multiple examples, I'm sure Rahul has seen it also during. You never know what they expect of you. The expectations, perhaps itself, there is a lack of clarity.
Fair enough. Let me come to you, Ashwin. You know, this entire conversation around today is to look at alco-bev sector as part of a larger whole. Now, in our report, we picked tourism as one, and we picked, you know, sugar because it's an input sector. But do you see would you give any credence to this argument? Do you think this is a justified way of looking at it? And if you did, what is the how would you position that for policymakers? Why do you think alcohol should not be looked at in a standalone manner, but part of a larger whole which contributes to the growth of other sectors as well? What is...
Absolutely, actually. It's on. Hi. Hi. Good morning. Good morning. Yeah, actually, yes. In fact, we've been fighting with a few governments to actually bring in something called as a whiskey tourism or a wine tourism, because that also increases employment in the hospitality sector, point number one. Point number two, food sector, because the food pairing thing is now really picking up. And in fact, even at the semi-premium segments as well, people are trying to experiment food. So yeah, so this is one thing which I feel will have a greater potential going forward, is something to do, attach with like a medical tourism, have something, you know, where you come in, spend a week, try different kinds of wines, very geographically restrictive kind of things. Suppose you come down to Goa, maybe we can give you a Feni tourism or a Goan wine tourism. Or suppose we go to Gurgaon. Is that the state which is known for microbreweries? Yeah. So, maybe you can have a microbrewery tour, like a brewery crawl. You spend 3-4 days, get educated, understand the sense of responsible drinking. How good is it? How fun is it to actually drink less and drink every day? Not just drink one time completely and then you wake up with a very sad headache the next day. That's one thing. And second is, even Paritosh will kind of agree that a restrictive promotion of beverage alcohol is required in our country because, we work together in London quite a few times. We have attended exhibitions and all of that. So where we saw that, where we are able to speak with the consumer directly, face to face, and explaining him or her that, this is really good, but if you drink more, it's going to be bad. It's like if you have 2 plates of butter chicken, you're obviously going to have a bad time next day. For that matter, even if you exercise 12 hours in a day, you're going to have a very bad time next 1 week. So yeah, education is of primary importance, I feel. And secondly, there is FMCG and there is SFMCG, super fast consumer products. That is us. We are technically the fastest. I think if Amul butter is not counted, then we are the fastest selling consumer product in the country as beverage alcohol. All kinds, like beer, wine, spirits, country liquor primarily. Because there's a saying that roughly in a second, in India, we consume 144 units of alcohol, which is very, very high, which is probably one of the highest in the world, sparing the beer market in the UK because that's much higher. Again, I again come back to the thing that we have to have a sustainable tax plan. There is no point taxing us 1,000% or 800% like Maharashtra does. It just hampers our creativity. Point number one, I have so many ideas that I want to implement, but the first thing I see, is it going to be profitable? Is it like, can I even work out with a salary? So at least have a separate policy for craft brewers, craft distillers, where people are, where the government is giving a chance to explore different kinds of beverage alcohol that we as Indians can produce. Amrut has proven it, Paul John has proven it, to an extent Codes has proven it much earlier, much before the multinationals came in our country. So, we should be given a chance, I feel. You're in policy making. If you can talk to anybody in that sector, we don't know. We don't generally go there because we're too scared. The moment they say liquor, oh, side mein rakho. So, yeah, if you can help us in creating a separate policy for craft distillers, craft brewers, and craft wines, sure. I think that is the way forward because then the export potential, because people are looking up to India today. People are looking up to India for its food, which was not the case about 20, 25 years ago. Like when we go for trade shows outside, a lot of people ask about, okay, apart from Indian single malt, what else do we have? Like Indian beer. Cobra is doing it, but this is a UK beer made in, but there's nothing that's coming in from India. Like craft beer, people are asking for craft beers from India. You guys are known for spices, you guys are known for so many things. Why don't you have something in, exact gins, yes. And wines as well. We have some of the fantastic grape growing areas in our country, much better than some other parts of the world. So, yeah, my only request is give us a separate segment for craft distilling and craft brewing.
So you'll be happy to know Maharashtra is open to exploring that. We just met with the principal secretary, and this was brought up by a couple of the associations saying, could you? And I think because of elections, etc., a lot of things were kind of put on hold. But I think part of the entire engagement process is not just to go tell them, can you do a policy? Sometimes it probably helps to tell them exactly what you want. Because I think in most situations, when you have policymakers, they don't, and this is not just true of your sector, this is true across board of many sectors that are there. They're not sector experts, and sometimes they really don't understand the subject matter. So it helps to go break it down and tell them, look, this is what is the pain point. Can you make this easy? Because they're exploring. Maharashtra is open to looking at lowering the duty structure, creating a separate slab for your microbreweries. So I don't see why they can't do the same for something which is more homegrown in terms of your vineyards and distilleries. But I think that engagement has to happen.
Yeah. As long as it's not in amber, like he said. If it goes in green, then we are fine. Varna amber mein to sab kuch hai na?
Fair enough.
Like if I go and say, I think I can do this product under this law, the excise commissioner says, well, you can't do the same product under the same law that you're talking about.
No, fair enough. But that's what progress is.
Yeah.
Paritosh, let me bring you in here. Do you think the market has evolved from a regulation point of view? Do you see, has it moved? Has there been any kind of change that has happened? Or are we dealing with the same thing over and over again?
So I actually don't operate in India.
Great.
But
My mistake.
not-
So
not
that I
that
should come to you.
No, no.
Then let me ask you a different question. Rahul can answer that. So why, let me ask, why don't you, I don't know most of you, why don't you operate in
no,
India?
No, it's not that one doesn't want to, but so there was a dream, and then I started my business in the UK, and always wanted to kind of bring it to India, but it's been a couple of years, and Rahul knows, and I've been trying, but I think there are certain fundamental issues with the way all of us look at alcohol as a category, right? So when I landed in the UK almost about 10-15 years back, and I was attending a meeting, and they asked me, what will you drink? This was like about 10:30 in the morning, 11 o'clock. And having grown up in India, I said, drink this early? And there, an orange juice is a drink and a beer is a drink. Everything is a drink, right? So there is no distinction. And it's not that if somebody is, these countries where India's per capita is, I don't know, what, 4 or 5 at this stage? China is maybe about 25, 30. Czech Republic is 140, right? But if you see the trends, right, I mean, one would tend to think that those guys would be drinking every hour of the day, but that doesn't happen, right? If you look at global biggies, AB, InBev, Diageo, etc., they are now all saying that 25% of their business will probably come from non-alcohol. So the lines are blurring, right? And I guess the way I've been kind of looking at, especially with this government, I've got a lot of hope, because all the archaic laws that have been in existence for the last 50 years, a lot of them are being addressed, right? Right from Kashmir to whatever. And why not this?
Which specifically, which law in terms of?
No, I'm saying in terms of looking at alcohol from a lens which is ridiculous. Being state subjects, and you can sell only wine and beer out of this, and not. So I don't understand. And if you look at the consumers, the way they are moving, right? It's not that. So people are drinking less across the globe, right? So I guess it's just the way we. In fact, just to give you an example, I wanted to get, and this is 2019 today, right? And I operated in this market in India for about 6-7 years. So I got 5-6 bottles of my gin, which I just introduced in the UK. And it's been lying at the customs for 10 days. These were samples, and they're asking me to produce a letter from Delhi Excise, right, in terms of a no objection. So come to think of it, the brand is not registered here. Excise says no, they are not. So as simple a thing as you are wanting to bring a brand, and you're wanting to kind of sample and do some research, it's not. So it's archaic, couple of such examples, yeah.
So Rahul, actually, let me come back to you again on exactly the same question I asked him before. So I think his short answer, even though he doesn't deal with regulation here, is international. Even if you're a brand wanting to come in, things haven't changed particularly for you. But given the fact that what I'm hearing throughout on this panel is that consumers are changing. So they're kind of wisening up. It's no longer the binging. It's more drinking more responsibly, understanding what you're drinking better. There is more enjoyment to it. And there's more joy to it, as you said. So, with this change, and that's how I suppose eventually perceptions change, as you said, more younger bureaucracy coming in, so therefore they don't view it under the same lens. But has that translated into differences in your interactions when you're looking at it from a regulatory framework? Are you still kind of hitting the same kind of walls? Do you see some respite, any difference? Or has it just been the same thing?
Like I said, I'm not from the industry, so that gives me a bit of that non-biased opinion. But 7 years in the industry. So India has 36 states and union territories. 6 you cannot, they're dry, they're not parched, okay? You can drink in Gujarat, but it's dry technically. So out of 30 is what my universe is. Out of 30, we are in 9 states now. I need to go to the other 21. It's taken me 7 years to reach 9 states. It's like 9 countries in any way. As we all know. So I think everybody in this room knows the complexity of the business we are in. But at the end of the day, it's one state at the time, and that's what we do. The good news is the consumer is common. The consumer in Goa is aspirational or as educated as in Punjab. Okay? A Punjab could drink more than Goa, that's another part, but at the end of the day, they both have the same aspirations. I'm talking about the younger consumer. Who's the consumer we address? So the universe is same. The complexities are different. And the only way to do this is the consumer does not really care two hoots. Most of the time, I've been asked, so Delhi mein ye hai, Gurgaon mein kyun nahi hai? They don't understand Gurgaon and Delhi are two states. Yeah? They don't care about it. Complexities are the point that within Delhi, if I have 10 outlets, one of the outlets blows out and we don't have a particular brand. In the retail business, you just pick it from the other part and move it to that. Not allowed. We're not allowed to transport goods between our own outlets. Forget that. I'm not even allowed to do warehousing. So I could do a hub and spoke. It's efficiency. It's not allowed. I'm not even allowed to return goods. So my goods are sitting on my outlet. If something goes out, a keg has a problem, it has to be quarantined. The inspector will come maybe 2 months later, and then it'll get destroyed. We're talking about 1,000 square foot. I'm running 20 tap beers. I'm not even allowed to have an attic. I'm not allowed a basement. So in my basement, I have food being stored, but alcohol has to be kept in a particular room. It's just unbelievable. To the point in Maharashtra, we have to break every bottle by a hammer. So I said, okay, how do I break this keg? This has to go back to Belgium. Oh, we don't know. Because the law says you have to break every bottle. For them, beer is a bottle. Imagine the amount of millions of pints I have to break by a hammer. It's ridiculous. You know, Maharashtra is a prohibited state. By law, it's prohibited. The same prohibition is applicable in Maharashtra and Gujarat. Same. But Maharashtra, you drink for health. Everybody is very healthy there. You know, it's just insane. When we went to the highway ban, we went and actually did a lot of, let's say, what we call advocacy around it. And the strangest thing came out. This is based on the Ministry of Road Transport, where they said people are drinking and driving and there are fatal accidents. You know, our state of Gujarat had 32 accidents drink driving. You know, state of Goa had 0 accident drink and driving. 0 accident I'm talking about fatal accident. 0. And Gujarat had 32 people. So it's just, it's a narrative. It's all about data. At the end of the day, the only way we work, and I'm talking from an RAI point of view, which is part of it, I'm a trustee now. We go to every state, it's advocacy, simple. Consumer, it's all about public opinion, and like we're discussing with Mona, the public opinion has to come out. You know, Mr. Jolly just walked in and he knows what he's done also on that. We're doing these research groups saying, why are you drinking in a car? You know, why are women drinking alone at home? Because they don't want to come out into an experienced place. So we're coming into this. So I think it's an overall picture. I only see a light at the end of the tunnel, and I just hope for all of us it's not a running train. That's it.
But Paritosh, since you operate outside, regulatorily, because you know, what is different? Why is it been easier outside than it is here? What is that differentiating factor?
So it's, I would say there's a huge difference even between a US and a UK. So it's not, you know,
it's not all
let's just
happy
say,
everywhere.
So for example,
sure.
US is also a federal structure, and you know, but I guess it's, as I said, I guess it's a way of life, and it's not. I mean, we've been hearing right from the days of the gods. You know, people have been drinking, so Madira and stuff. So it's been ingrained in our culture. It's not that we have adopted something externally, right? And if it's a way of life, then it should be treated as a way of life, right? So I guess, you know, it's, except for the fact, so even in the UK, right, just to give you an example, the duties are very high, very, very, very high. So much so that almost about 40% goes in the duties, right? So it's not that the duties are not high, but I guess the entire environment, the way the government, the authorities, the consumers, they all see that as, so there is largely not, you know, there is no price differential as well. Even in terms of the distribution, there's not much, you know, you get into a mom and pop shop and you can buy a Coke, you can buy an adult soft drink, you can buy a beer, you can buy a cider, you can buy any and everything. So I guess it's just a way of looking at things, and once you are kind of, you know, used to kind of looking at that, right from your early days, then it's not a sort of a taboo, or it's not that, you know, you are kind of prevented from drinking for the first 15 years of your life and 60 or 16, and suddenly when you are out in the open, when you're in the college, and suddenly you start to kind of, so I guess it's just a matter of fact, and that's how it should be treated.
So I I have a question for you, Arun. See, so I agree with what Paritosh said. I think if you're exposed to it in your everyday life a lot more, then maybe you don't grow up with it being considered a taboo. But in India, things are different. You are a large country, and you also have a lot of illegal things going on. So notwithstanding whether it's a dry state, not a dry state, you do have people brewing their own stuff, and you have people dying as a result of it. And as a government, it's their responsibility to kind of take care and make sure that doesn't happen, which is why they become more and more, in terms of regulations, they kind of take on the role of an enforcer rather than one of that of a market developer. Notwithstanding that, but you also hear, like in other sectors, of organized players. So I'm not talking about those of them who are your fly-by-night operators, as a common parlance goes, but organized players who also tend to bend the law a little, make it work this way, that way, to kind of, maybe because there is excess regulation, maybe because of whatever they think. But how is the industry? Forget the regulation and what is coming in, but how are you as an industry, as a sector, regulating yourselves? What is it that you are doing? How is it that you're committing to saying, I will be compliant, I know it can be a pain, but I am going to be compliant? The reason I ask this is yesterday when we met with the excise department in Karnataka, they came up with about a dozen examples in terms of transport where vehicles have been seized, and they said, why is your vehicle there? It shouldn't be there. All your vehicles, when you're transporting alcohol, are GPS marked. And as a company, have you done anything about it when you see deviations happening? So how is it that as a sector, as a company, as an industry, what are you doing to stay compliant, and what is that commitment? Collectively, how are you ensuring not just that you are compliant, but your peers are compliant? So the self-regulation aspect, what is it that the sector is doing?
I think there are two aspects to this entire thing. First of all, I think self-compliance is self-induced, in the sense that you have to be, your organization goals and vision should be very clear, and saying that if you are going to be a compliant business, of course you have to do everything, whether it's an anti-bribery policy, any policies in terms of anything. That is something which each individual company has to do. From an industry point of view, I think we need to actually have a far more pragmatic and a holistic approach. Whilst we can self-regulate ourselves in terms of, as a company, that this is our vision and this is what we have set out to do. Yes, we do find many times, as I said, many of our peers in many other organizations or groups which have unfortunately indulged in certain activity, either willingly, knowingly or unknowingly. But let's also give them a benefit of doubt, because when you said, for example, you said the Karnataka gentleman said in Karnataka saying that they're GPS tracked. I'll give you a simple example. So when a truck has to move from Delhi to Bangalore, there is a set routing.
Correct.
Okay, so it goes via this checkpoint, that checkpoint, whatever it is. It has happened in several instances where the truck driver has deviated from the path unknowingly. It can happen. So in the middle of the night, they're driving at 2:30 a.m., 3 a.m. in the morning, they've come to a roundabout, so instead of taking the straight road, the guy has taken a right and then is continued to move on. 2 kilometers down the road, there is a police checkpoint, not even excise. They put the driver under, obviously, arrest. The goods are confiscated. In one particular instance, the goods were confiscated for 5 years. We were battling it in court. So it's not that the companies are not compliant. A lot of companies have to do more to become more regulated in terms of The most important thing is the simplicity of the law. As I mentioned, I said these laws, generally speaking, when you look at it, it's like reading a legal document many times. So I said if you make simple laws, automatically compliance is going to be improved by at least about 70% extra. You will get automatically, people will become compliant. Now laws are confusing. Many, as I mentioned, I said this particular instance which happened to one of the companies there, it's happened in Karnataka as well. The permit has, obviously validity is at 12. The truck driver reached at 12:05. The stocks were seized for 3 years. They were completely compliant. but the officer on the ground decides he is the authority. Do not look at the case from a very practical and a pragmatic kind of view. He's got all the papers and has all got the compliance. Just because of his 5 minutes late, that stock was stuck for 3 years.
How do you see a solution to this? Because you're right, and I think this is one feedback that's gone constantly to the excise department. The fact is that sitting where they are, they may be very, very forward thinking and they may be great, but the trickle down that happens to the person at the end is not, I think, as effective. And you don't know, as you say, it's so discretionary, then it's just one person sitting there and saying, I'm the boss and I make the rules. But how do you see, what is the solution you see to this?
Look, I think it's just about perception change. I think, first of all, the alcohol industry traditionally, I think, has been seen that, I said, the guys who drink alcohol are bad boys. So they, at the end of the day, traditionally, I think that's the thought process that's been coming. But I think it's all to do with perception change. We have to change perceptions about the alcohol industry. We are not the bad boys. We are in a happy business. We want to be in a regulated business. We want to be completely compliant. We want to contribute, which we anyway contribute to the economy and the exchequer of every state. It goes into multiples of thousands of crores. But the perception has to change that alcobev is basically, we do not even have a ministry of alcobev, for example. Let's put it this way. It is part and the subsection of something else. So if this industry contributes so much to the exchequer, then I think it has to be treated specially and separately. It's not always them versus us. So generally it seems to be that it's them versus us most of the time, because there is the guy who's sitting out there and interpreting, and I'm the guy. If I am contributing and I'm taking a license in a particular city to operate my outlet or my company, I'm a stakeholder. We have to work together as stakeholders, and I think that perception and each exercises we have to say that we are not against you, you're not against us. We have to start working on that perception, saying that we are stakeholders. We want to contribute, and let us contribute together to the development of the state. Let us try to bring in laws which are practical. Sit with us. We will make sure that, as we are going to make compliant laws, simplistic laws, and automatically, I think, compliances will follow. Now, what happens is some people will listen to you, some people just don't bother. And you're right, because at the top, people are changing, but the inspector right at the bottom, he just doesn't care.
Fair. I think that's a problem. So in terms of, Ashwin, tell me, in terms of markets or in terms of your, because you have multiple markets in India, which one have you found probably the easiest to deal with? And I'm going to ask you to leave out the two extremes, which is, let's say, Goa, and I'm going to say leave the dry states out. But where otherwise, more or less, you have a, I'm not going to say level playing field, but generally...
Amber.
Kind of. But yes, so, but even within the ambers, you have the dark ones and you have the light ones. So which were the markets which have been relatively easy to deal with, and which haven't? And your reasons for it, what have you found easy?
Karnataka is a very friendly market, according to me, followed by Meghalaya. Then West Bengal has started to get friendlier. Telangana is friendly. Andhra was friendly until yesterday. Today they have become like us and them, not together anymore. Kerala is starting to get friendly. I think they have slashed some rates on imports as well, I am told. And but ultimately, I would say friendly when we compare it to another state, but
Relatively.
Relatively,
But why has it been friendly? What is that element which makes you think they're friendly?
because they're very proactive, Karnataka, according to me. It's like, okay, you want to do this, all right, we'll find you a way and, we'll give it to you. And
Rahul's nodding his head the other way.
no, but relatively,
But well, they've promised to meet you NRAI every quarter now to actually seek inputs. So they said you don't come and approach us. Yeah.
yeah.
I've got one question to ask, which might be radical, and I'm not sure.
But I'm just going to interrupt you for half a second. How long do we have? 2 minutes more? Times? Yeah, I will. That's fine. Thanks. Yes, please.
I was saying, like for any new product or concept or idea, you do a pilot, right? You do a concept testing. Is there any state in India which we all collectively think, right, however big, small, doesn't matter, and which is more kind of liberal in its approach, and that there are, sensibilities are better? Can that state collectively with with this body coming to, so like there is a Portman body in the UK and otherwise, obviously here also you've got these bodies. So if the industry association, spirits, wine, beer, etc. come together, right, and one of the states becomes like a model state where, you don't have such sort of archaic laws and you relax it a bit and see how things, is that too radical to do? Is it doable? Not?
No.
What do you think,
I don't
Rahul?
think it's radical at all, but why don't you take turns? I
So,
have
so
mine.
Goa has done that for beer. Goa has allowed you to brew less as a craft. But Goa has also allowed you to bottle. For example, most of the brew pubs are only allowed to sell on premise. Some of the states like Maharashtra allows you to brew beer for other tap rooms, but it's a B2B business. Goa has allowed you to not only do B2B, but also bottle in small. Like Goa Brewing Company is bottling right now, and they can bottle and sell it in Karnataka and other places. So I think that's the same with gin. Even with bottling Japanese whiskey, you know that in Goa, Japanese whiskey is being bottled as we speak. So I think it's a model state to be
For the
where,
bottling business.
for the point of variety of spirits, including wine. So I think when I'm talking about when saying pilot means small batches, curated, and even if you look at it, there's only one experience center in India, which is the Paul John Center, from an experience point of view in Goa. I think it's a good state to be
But
from
look
that
beyond-
perspective. It's anyway not a state, it's a state
look
of mind.
beyond Goa. Tell me, because
No,
which
he
is why I
asked about a
started-
pilot. I said, we do a pilot. We could do, you can't do this in Delhi because Delhi doesn't allow manufacturing. So I'm just giving you, where would you do? You need to also have the state which actually helps you do that. It's like it's a together partnership. It needs to come through tourism. It always has to flow from tourism. Wherever you have more tourism, you need to do it. Like for example, in UP, when we met with Mrs. Awasthi many times over, we got the tourism angle. And she says, yes, I think Agra we should open up more. And because people are not staying back in Agra. So there's no tourism. They do a day trip because they want to come back to Delhi. If Agra has a bustling nightlife, including alcohol beverage in it, people will stay back. It happens across the world. But right now the focus is 5 rupees for every cow, every bottle. And so, like I was just telling you, I just contributed 16 lakh rupees over last year to UP in cow cess. Every bottle I've sold of beer, I've given 5 rupees to the government. I want to go and meet those cows because I paid 16 lakhs for those cows. I want to have a picture with them. And I want it, I demand it. But that's not, nobody cares.
We're meeting the UP government
Yeah,
on
please,
20th.
please
We'll
do
make
that.
sure we put that on
Absolutely.
record. But I'll open the floor out for any questions as well while I still continue chatting. So any questions? Okay. So let me ask you before. Yeah. Yes, please.
Simple question.
Yes.
We've heard this time and
For my benefit, if
Hello.
you could introduce yourself, because all
Hi,
of you are
my name is Aditya Patwardhan. I run a small little packaging house called Manohar Packaging, and we do a lot of alcobev. So guys, I'm going to be brutally honest here. I mean, I have a stall outside. I do hope you all come there. If you want to bail the cat, you all can do it outside, not in a public forum. But we've gone through this rigmarole time and time and time and time again for decades and decades. We've been doing, well, before my birth, we've been packaging alcobev for 7 decades now. It's always been the same problem.
which is?
Tell me one thing, if alcobev markets were truly opened up, truly, if it weren't a state excise subject, which it can never be, so there's no point us arguing again and again. But if it weren't a state subject in this fantasy land of ours that we create, and if it were open market to all, would you guys still be in the business? Because the competition that's going to come and eat you up is going to be huge. You'll have global funding. We'll have money pouring out of every echelon of input that RBI can take. Do you think the so-called giants in India will still be giants? Do you all like the protection that the industry is getting today because of the jugaad? Because of a legal truck getting stuck for 3 years? Yes, that's bonkers, but buddy, you and I know how to get that truck out. The problem is petty cash and expenses, etc. It's part of life. So think of it long and hard. How many of you guys, and I'm not just addressing the guys on the stage, but how many of you guys are actually happy that your markets are protected to some extent? Some extent. Let's not go extremes. Think about it. Cheers, guys.
Well, that's for you.
Absolutely, because I always say that to him, thankfully there's excise, so I can't let anybody else copy what I'm doing. it'll take a while before somebody else comes in and tries to replicate what we have been trying to do for many years. Yeah, so, but that's the case everywhere, no, Adit. There's excise in the US, there's excise in Sao Paulo, there's excise in Zambia, Kenya, Tanzania. Every state has protection. So here they're only here we're only talking about ease of doing clear business, not protection is there in every part of the world for beverage alcohol. Like, I can't go today and do something like a bourbon in the States because the federal laws are very different. That, that,
They can all hear me. Pre-Diageo and post-Diageo. Look at the volume set drop. Where's that volume gone? To small distributors / players. It's gone to the local market players. Now, if big money wants to come into Alcobev and you want to make big change and you want to see big Oreca, that ain't ever going to happen. So protectionism. So smaller players, and I'm very pro that because make in India, keep in India, don't repatriate. We're all seeing what the dollar and the pound is going to right now. The rupee is getting a beating. I'm very for that. But think about it. Sometimes protectionism is a better thing.
yeah, but also the truck should not be stuck up for 3 years, no?
See, that is another angle which is best not discussed in an open forum.
Can I actually take that? Because I'll give you the example from other sectors. See, what you're saying is not new to just your sector. This is true of any sector. Look at retail. Look at what is happening to your e-com giants. Look at, I mean, it's across board. The fact of the matter is the argument that you offer, irrespective of whether it's the Alcobev sector or whether it's any other sector, is when the big money comes in and the big guys come in, right? Do they bring in a certain level of competition? Do they bring in a certain level of efficiency which permeates and helps the smaller guys to scale up, which happened when your malls came in? And your Kirana stores didn't disappear even though everyone thought they would, but they managed to upscale themselves. So it's a tricky conversation, but I believe the answer is what I always tell everybody, that at the end of the day, you need to offer regulatorily a level playing field for small guys, big guys, everybody. So for example, going back to your 3-year argument that if a truck is seized and my goods are seized for 3 years, as a big guy, I may be able to take that beating and I may be, no, from the point of view of, find the financial point of view. A small guy cannot, which means the chances of the small guy going out of business just because of that one little incident is much higher, which means it makes it more difficult. Whether your reasons are right, not right, whether you're doing it, I'm not talking about the act itself, the impact. But I think I would never really side protectionism. I would always defend, you know, regulation that happens in a calibrated manner, in a differential regulation style where the small guy gets a certain amount of preference, the big guys get a different kind of preference, and maybe that's the way to go. But as you say, that's also going to take time because you're going to have then already in a market which is split sideways in terms of state governments, you're going to have even more splits. But that's, yeah, so that's something the industry needs to think about and wonder whether they want so many segments in an already highly segmented market.
Yeah, but even if protectionism, Pernod, Diageo are leaders and Heineken is leader, no? Yeah, so how does protectionism affect anybody? Only thing is with this kind of a policy, it's basically a level playing field. Like suppose I'll take an example of state of Andhra Pradesh or Telangana. Which one? No, it's coming. Now, a lot of things are getting online, yeah? Permits are getting online. NOCs are getting online. A lot of things, label registration is getting online. There's a timeline actually.
See,
within 2 days, you need to sanction.
Yeah, yeah. And I also believe one of the biggest changes that you will see in the next, and that's personally what we're working for, is to actually convert all your excise procedures, move it from offline to online, which means that discretionary power of
Transparency
the
is coming
last
in,
guy
yeah.
right there will also kind of reduce.
Because he needs to upload online the moment he sees the
Exactly.
truck. So it goes to the commissioner immediately whether he can approve or
And
not.
therefore, the right to kind of override becomes easy. So the 12 and 1205, if you pick up the call and you see it's silly, I mean, it becomes easier to override such decisions. Anyway, so thank you very much, and I'm sure we'll have more of these discussions. And I just have one possible suggestion as a complete outsider. Oh, yes, please.
It is a very interesting discussion we are having this morning. See, you mentioned online. See, in Indian industry, alcohol-bev industry has come really of age. The as he said, myth of doing seconds, rampant seconds is gone. There used to be a time in Karnataka, I remember about 10 years ago, where all illegal was legal. It's all over. It used to be a rogue state. UP used to be a rogue state. UP today is the best state according to me. I have been in Radico all my life, 13 years I've been there. Everything is online, even label registration is online. You can, every 1st April, new retailers come. Everybody has a chance to take retail. Everybody has a chance to take bar. Everybody has a chance to take wholesale. Everybody has a chance to bring his own stock. And everything is online. Avasti, as he rightly said, she created this environment, and with the political will. Look at Rajasthan. Everything is online. Delhi, right from the word go from the factory, the power goes until it reaches the consumer. Nobody can do any seconds. So the consumer is very confident of what he or she is drinking. It's not adulterated, or it's not, full excise duty is paid. Yes. See, the human tendency is there to take a shortcut. But these policies which are coming into force are very, very effective. Look at Kerala. Yeah. Look at any other state which is having a government corporation. All the three stakeholders are happy. The manufacturer, because our money is secure in Delhi or in Rajasthan or in Karnataka, wherever, Madhya Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, wherever, West Bengal. So 20 years back, North used to be, we used to lose money heavily in the North. Now, wherever there are government corporations, we don't lose money. So we can do a lot of brand building. And not only at the company level, but at the exchequer level also, wherever government corporations have come, the exchequer has gone up. UP is clocking 23,000 crores. And in contrast to, say, 3 years ago when the environment was different. So, and lastly, the third stakeholder is the consumer. Consumer has more choice. Today we have world-class packaging, world-class brands, right? Johnny Walker Black, Shivers, Amrut, everything, Paul John, everything is there on the shelf. It's for the consumer to enjoy the drink and get delighted. And most important is, today we are not the same industry who were, but today a lot of bureaucrats, young bureaucrats like Delhi Excise Commissioner, he's very, very, he has an open door policy. You go and meet him, he may have a certain limitation, but at least he'll work with you, the deputy commissioner, anywhere you go. So government corporations are realizing that if they don't keep the industry in good humor, they won't make extra money in the exchequer. So all is not lost. That's what I feel.
No, I think that's very important. Thank you, because that answers the question that I was asking, that have you seen some kind of change that has happened, or are you still dealing with the same thing? So which makes one hopeful, and I think it's a good note to end on, saying that obviously things are changing, either because of digital or because of more new blood, or generally because the policymakers realize today the importance of the sector that they probably didn't earlier. So which means there's only forward to go, and hopefully in the next couple of years, we will see in more transparency, a more open market for even foreign brands to come in. And hopefully ease of doing business is happening, maybe slowly, but it is happening. So on that note, thank you very much. Thank you.
Well, I'd like to thank all our panelists, and I would request all of them to be there on the stage. I'd request Mr. Bishan Kumar and Mrs. Shalini Kumar to join our panelists on the stage for a group picture. Okay, so just the prolific panel today. Well, thank you so much, and this couldn't have been better. Thank you. And with this, we were able to touch upon a lot of topics like self-regulation, a lot of insight about the perspective, breaking the taboo, and a lot more, ladies and gentlemen. And This year, before I get into the second panel discussion, before we all get into the second panel discussion, this year we've tried to touch upon a social issue, a very relevant social issue relevant to the alcobev industry, and a social issue that touches upon lives every day. Well, it's all about having a road to safety. It's all about taking a pledge of not drinking and driving together. So not drinking and driving together, will not drink and drive. Let's take a pledge today here at this ThinkPad session of Spiritz 2019. And all of you who are ready to take this pledge along with us, give me a cheer. Will not drink and drive. Come on. Are you with me on this? Okay, so because yes, we are here to touch upon the social topic, so I'll now quickly present to you the next topic of the ThinkPad session, which is the responsible drinking and its far-reaching impacts, which includes subtopic, how we do address alcohol harm, irresponsible drinking, why can't there be uniformity on legal drinking age in India? Ladies and gentlemen, I'd now like to call upon the stage the moderator for this session, Mr. Deepak Jolly, founder, Consortia Advisory. He has had a stellar career in transnational companies spanning over 35 years. He is recognized as an industry leader in policy advocacy, crisis management, reputation management, stakeholder engagement, sustainability, and marketing programs. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for our moderator, Mr. Deepak Jolly, one more time. I'd now like to invite the fellow panelists for this panel discussion on the stage. Can I please have on stage Mr. B.V. Rao, Group Editor, TV9. He's popularly known as Venkat and is India's one of the most respected journalists. He is a senior editor, commentator, news and communications professional, and is currently heading TV9 group of channels. To join them in the panel, can I now have on stage Dr. G.V. Rao, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Yes, he is gonna join us very shortly. He is a well-known legal practitioner having 30 years of experience with specializations in corporate and tax domains. So he'll be joining us very shortly. Can I also have on stage to join the panel Mr. Pradeep Gidwani, industry veteran and founder, The Pint Room. He is a serial entrepreneur and startup specialist. Mr. Gidwani was ranked by Business Today as one of India's hottest young executives in its first ever listing of 25 of India's Inc. Rising Stars. He has successfully steered Carlsberg's India operations as its managing director and established its strong foundation in India. Can I now have on stage Mr. Anand Virmani, co-founder, now Spiritz. He is the first craft gin distiller in India. Previously, he worked with William Grant & Sons and Remy Cointreau in India and spent some time in between the vineyards of Burgundy while pursuing a formal education in wine. And last but not the least, can I now have on stage Ms. Meenakshi Singh, co-founder of Sidecar and Cocktail and Dreams. Young and dynamic professional turned entrepreneur, Meenakshi is a name known by all who love great cocktails and delectable foods. She co-founded Cocktails and Dreams, Speak Easy, a multi-award winning iconic cocktail bar in 2012. So ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it for the panel. This completes our panel for the second ThinkPad session for the day. And now over to Mr. Deepak Jolly.
Thank you. So just to get the context and warm up, I see it's a nice Thursday morning in Delhi. But make the discussion a little warmer. I have put together a small presentation which will trigger many questions. So the questions are coming from one research which we said. What are the barriers for responsible drinking? And if there are barriers to responsible drinking, then let's elucidate them one by one.
And as a part of my panel discussion, I would like all of you to respond to some of the barriers which you have been experiencing. So just to make this very, very discussion oriented with process and not trigger happy, I thought, so over to the presentation. Can you put the first slide, please? Yeah, thank you. So basically, we realized that, India has some legacy issues of 72 years of, after 72 years of independence. We have excise laws which are of the British era. Again, a lot has been talked about the policy. A lot has been talked on legal on-premise drinking. But the fact remains that if you drink on-premise, you will largely be responsible. If you drink off-premise, you will not be responsible. And it has been seen, and I will present a small report on that. So do we have sufficient drinking on-premise places in India? Is the knowledge of responsibility there across India between what should I drink? Should I drink a peg, 2 pegs, 3 pegs? Is there a responsible drinking, is that knowledge known to the consumers? Is the laws and enforcement known to the consumers? Because, at the end, these are some of the questions which are asked. Again, few admit, and many say, and the last panel said, India is the largest drinking place. But again, there are certain states which are very dry. And let me tell you, do the dry states mean that the longevity of life has happened much more there? Why? Kerala and Punjab have the highest life expectancy, which are the highest drinking population, and Gujarat has the number 10 in life expectancy. So has alcohol had that far-reaching impact in Punjab and Kerala? No, so these are some of the questions which I would love to ask the panelists, and you can note them. Then drinking age of 25 years in many states. So what does that mean? Somewhere it's 18, somewhere it's 21. In many states, they call themselves very progressive, but there are as many as 56 dry days. A place like Bombay, when it had elections, so I actually witnessed 4,000 people waiting at a liquor store to open and buy the liquor. I mean, so much of time wasted in economy over there. Another point which I thought was very important was that, whatever you say, India is a country of joint family even now. And the respect for elders definitely is something which is much more than many other places. So does irresponsible drinking is a part of our heritage where we will not drink in front of elders? Then why is it that this subject of irresponsible consumption raised? Country liquor policy, beer, hard liquor, IMFL, these are some of the other things which we need to discuss. Of course, whenever somebody wants to discuss bad effects of liquor, so the social taboo of beating someone's wife or beating his own wife becomes a common topic of discussion. And of course, then we all start defending responsible consumption, and we say, no, that is a astray. This case is not there. Having said that, I think, so what we did was, we went with 3,000 individuals. We did a survey across the country, which you can see. It's a Kantar survey, and IMRB Kantar. And what came out from the 3,000 respondents in 7 states in the country was that all the millennials, which was because most of them did online, they want one nation, one LDA. They don't want the 25, they don't want, they are okay with 18, but most of them prefer 21 as the LDA. Now, these outcomes are significant because we will be taking them to the other stakeholders as well, and it's up for discussion for this panel and the next panel. The second one is very important. Out of the 3,000 respondents, if you can see in all these states, whether it was in West Bengal, Tamil Nadu, Andhra Pradesh, they all resonated, UP, Maharashtra, and then of course Haryana, Delhi. The people resonated with the fact that young India wants more legal, sober places to drink and dine, and young India wants to know where to drink, and they do want to be responsible. So this is a very interesting facet of the survey. One of the barriers to responsible consumption and the outcome was that because there are not many places, so car by the day and bar by the night. So this is a Karo bar, which is called, is rampant across Delhi, where there are lesser places to drink. And whenever there are lesser places to drink, there will be more consumption of alcohol and, will have a far-reaching impact. Something which we wanted to also talk about women. I think the whole nation has been talking about women and their safety. I think the fact is that, and this is for the liquor industry to also address, that why is it that the retail infrastructure for liquor has been unfriendly? And many of the women surveyed wanted to drink at home rather than go to the bar or buy liquor from the shop. And this is a 7-state survey. So these are some of the barriers which are there on problems faced during the purchase of alcohol, on some of the very interesting subjects which are there on when we look at, just one second. Some of the points are mentioned there, and I'll circulate the points as well. Just one second. Yeah. So inadequate number of licensed outlets, unavailability of brands, variation of prices, inadequacy of spaces, presence of outlets in dingy, unsafe areas, and lack of surety on genuineness of the alcohol brand sold. Now, these are some of the barriers which we thought were up for discussion. And of course, as the theme is responsible drinking, and we have come up as a part of NRAI and ISWAI that we need to have, for the millennials, an online campaign. Of course, there is a drink and drive, but we say generally a campaign which should talk about responsibility. So I would start with my friend at the right corner, Mr. Pradeep Gidwani. What do you feel are the barriers, and is it, do you agree with some of the points mentioned?
Thanks, Deepak. I think some really relevant points that you've really raised. I've sort of been in this industry for about 30 years, been actively involved in the brand side, and then now actively involved in sort of running bars and restaurants, so very, very close interaction with consumers and seeing a lot that's happening here. So, I mean, I think my take really on this whole subject is that, we're completely over-regulated, right? I mean, if you're talking about responsible drinking, what is responsible drinking, right? Responsible drinking is something where we as individuals should learn to control, manage ourselves, right? So that we don't cause harms to ourselves, we don't cause harm to others, and we don't cause harm to the society. Some of the things you talked about, wife beating, which we read about in the newspapers, right? How can we achieve this? I think there are two ways to do it. One is through regulation, and the other way is through self-regulation, right? We have a lot of regulatory laws in place. I think excessive, right? Excessive. Yeah, so we've got age policies which you say vary, right? Some places it's 18, some places it's 25. I mean, in most parts of Europe, I mean, drinking of beer and wine, lower alcohol, products is about 18, right? In India, we've got 18, 25. I mean, what are we talking about? A guy can marry at the age of 21. You can get a driving license at the age of 18. What are we talking about? What are we talking about, right? So therefore, regulation we have seen is something which needs to be there, but very simple, standardized across the country. We're talking about one nation, one tax. Why can't we have one nation, one legal drinking age here? So regulation needs to be there. US is regulated, but it needs to be simple. But I think what we really need to do from a responsible drinking perspective is really educate, right? Education, mindset change, I think this is something which is very critical. You talked about joint families, right? I can give I was very fortunate to have lived my very early years in Goa. And Goa was very greatly influenced by European culture. And I look at Europe, where a young kid sees his parents drinking openly, right? He sees his parents drinking openly. You have a social occasion, you have a wedding, you have a birthday party, and a young child sees his parents drinking responsibly, drinking openly. That actually educates the child and puts it in his head that drinking is not bad as long as I can self-regulate. The minute I say, don't drink this, and we saw this in Europe, right? We saw this in UK when bars shut at 12. At 10 to 12, there are 4 drinks ordered, and then you're knocking it down. We see that in Thekas, right? You talked about off versus on, right? What's happening over there? We're knocking it down. I've been in the beer business in India. Our country, our rules are responsible for creating strong beer. We have created strong beer. We have created strong beer, right? We've created it because of our irresponsible policies. So to me, responsible drinking is about trying to educate, bring about self-regulation, pretty much as we can. And then let people understand, let people be educated. And I'm sure India, with its education levels going up, with more openness coming in, automatically some of the challenges that we're seeing will come down. Regulatory framework needs to be there, but I would largely advocate self-regulation here. Some opening comments from me. Thanks, Deepak.
Thank you. No, very, very good insights. In fact, I was with a group of MBA students yesterday, and about 100 of them. And I just asked them, I knew that I would be coming here to discuss this subject. So I asked them that, look, how many of you drink? I found 5 hands slowly going up, then another 2, then 1 or 2 reluctant. And I told them, I said, listen, guys, I had a very modern family. And my father, the day I completed the age of 18, had a drink of Black Label with me. And he said, son, never drink hooch, only drink good drinks. The moment I said that, the whole crowd opened up and 56 hands went up that they drink. It's a matter of, out of sheer respect that they were not wanting or willing to. But the fact is, if you talk about responsible consumption, you will get a right response. But thank you for your inputs are very good. Now over to Meenakshi. Meenakshi, you've seen the survey. You have you're working as a co-founder of Sidecar, Cocktails and Dreams. What do you see the young millennials want? Do they want to get drunk? What's your experience? And of course, your comments on the survey. And what's the main subject about?
Thank you so much, Deepak. See, the thing is that it's a pretty complicated subject. It's a lot about self-regulation. It's also about putting the messages across. So it's also somewhere, the responsibility is shared here. So responsible drinking is not about just me telling you that don't drink after 2 drinks if you have to drive, or finding a designated driver within your group, etc. It has to come from an overall how you look at liquor as a social, as part of our social events, as part of our own cultural, upbringing. So it's very much like that. So in fact, a lot of youngsters, like we have seen a lot in the research that's thrown, is a lot about, not about drinking over drinking or drinking too much. It's all about quality. They are actually looking at good things now. So they're looking at not downing 10 drinks together. They will drink 2 drinks. Maybe the value of the bill will be the same, but the quality is a lot better. The experience is a lot better. They're looking they're looking for information. So they want to know what this gin is about, and where this beer is being made, or what is the story behind the brand. So they are a lot more informed. And the younger generation is actually the way to look at how they are drinking right now is far nicer. In fact, all of us as bars, we play a massive role in this. A lot of things like promotions like unlimited drinking packages and all of that, for the longest time we haven't ever done those, because unlimited drinking packages are indirectly saying drink as much as you can within these 3-4 hours that you have. And what do you think will happen after that? Obviously you will drink as much as you can. It's like the bang for your buck, right? So you're paying that much. Same thing goes for happy hours. Same thing goes for a whole lot of offers that are being offered outside of self-regulatory as well. So there's a lot of economic reasons as well that people do end up drinking more than they should. So yes, and a whole lot of people are now self-regulating and the messages are going out. We can see a really positive side of things now. Responsible drinking is very much about self and also about society as a whole. So, and liquor brands are also have done a whole lot of brands, like at least the brand leaders like Diageo, Pernod, we've seen for the longest time have advocated responsible drinking. Even in their campaigns, they've tied up with Uber, with Mega, at their events where there are free drops. There are some really, really positive signs there.
But do these children or these young millennials, are they aware of the harmful drinks, harmful effects, as mentioned as a part of the... is there any case on that?
Absolutely. So they know that one thing which is very, very clear is, of course, the drinking and driving combination, which is absolutely, everyone knows there's enough data out there to say how many accidents does Delhi see on a yearly basis. And I think I was just looking at it just before the panel. It was in 2018, there were about 14,000 cases of drinking, driving, out of which only some were prosecuted because a whole lot of them got away with it. That happens all the time. Why? But at the same time, they do know that it's there. The law is also playing a good role in that. One great thing that we've seen in the last 2-3 years is the fact that there's now Uber and there's other options to take. You have the option to not drink and drive, and it is very, very easy now. So it's an app away. So it's much easier for you to go out and responsibly drink and not worry about who's dropping me home, or, there's a whole safety angle to it and all of that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So over to Pradeep Gidwani. Anand. Over to Anand. Anand, you are the founder of Now Spiritz. And, of course, you have been so well entrenched into the liquor business. So I want to understand from you, there is always the harmful effects and many people talk about red wine being good for you. And at the same time, they say, many spirits are good and many spirits are bad. Is it about better or more? What is your argument about drinking?
Firstly, I'd like to say gin is good for you.
Huh?
But I think what Meenakshi said as well is completely true. People are looking at drinking better, definitely. So it's more about quality over quantity. We're seeing that not just with millennials, but with pretty much everyone else. But here we're looking at the tip of the iceberg. She runs the #1 bar in the country, right? There are many more bars that exist in the country. We're here, there's what, 50 people in here? The industry is a lot larger than that. And most of them are still facing issues, regarding, as you were talking about, irresponsible drinking, problems at home which lead to that, problems on the road that are caused by that. A lot of that, personally, I feel at least, we don't do enough about. As restaurants, as brands, we can't do enough about. Writing a line at the back when you do an event or on your label saying drink responsibly doesn't kind of indemnify you and say, all right, now I'm not responsible. There's a lot that goes into making that change. There's a lot that goes into making that step. Regulations is one part of it. I know Pradeep talked about regulations being there. We are completely over-regulated. But at the same time, enforcement is a much larger thing, right? The regulation for in Delhi, for example, is 25 years of age, right? So technically, if I'm under the age of 25, I can't buy alcohol. I'm saying this because the judge isn't here with us as yet. I've been buying alcohol since I was 14, right? That was the first time I went in and into a theka, shivering, but worried, I'm going to get caught by a cop or something like that. Walked out with 2 breezers, and I was like, wow, okay, interesting. The guy, the guy at the theka said, yeah, put them in your pocket, and then just walk out. Don't look left or right, just walk out. So, it was an achievement at that time, but it happens all the time. So having the age limit be 25, 21, 18, I think doesn't matter as much until you're able to regulate that. 25, in my perspective, is absolutely unrealistic.
No. Yeah.
Absolutely unrealistic. I think if you took that survey, like what you did with the MBA students, all of them are drinking. So we know this as a fact. Then either we try and regulate the 25 and we'll get riots in the streets, etc., or we come down to a realistic 18 or a 21 or whatever it is, and actually then realistically monitor it and control it at that point. So a lot of that obviously comes from, the other point that you were talking about alcohol being a taboo. Until you're able to talk about it, as you were able to talk about once you kind of, cleared that taboo yesterday with your MBA students, until the time you're able to talk about it, it's all underground, it's all secret, and hence, that leads to people drinking in cars because they can't go back home. That leads to, for example, 180 ml across the industry is the most widespread, quantity available for most spirits. Why is that? Because 180 ml is 2 or 3 drinks. So it's something you can go to the theka, buy it, drink it, throw it, and then go home. Leads to another problem, because where these guys are buying and drinking and consuming it, they are most likely throwing the plastic or glass bottle right there on the ground. So you've got littering as part of it as well. Sorry.
So according to the British manual, which says that a 30 ml drink consumed in 1 hour is responsible drinking. What do you have to say to that? Because that is don't trust the British. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we need some.
That's a simple answer. That's a simple answer. I think that's a secondary phase. I think first we need to deal with the fact that you can drink in a responsible manner. Firstly, I think that just doesn't exist right now. The presence of strong beers, the presence of these pawas, etc., is promoting the fact that you're supposed to drink fast and then get home. So there's no concept of sitting down with your mother or grandmother and having a glass of wine or a gin and tonic or whatever that may be. There's no concept like that as yet. For the most part, of course it's coming in, right? More and more, if you walk into Saika, you will see, a father drinking with his daughter or something like that happening, and that's fine. That's great to see, but it's a very, very, very small subsect.
Yeah. Before you give the mic to Venkat, Shivani, Meenakshi, I would like to ask you another question about the survey findings, which is about women. Why women are not wanting to go and buy liquor from a stall and very hesitant to go to the bars. What is preventing them? Well, there are findings in the survey, but would you like to throw some more light and what should be done for this responsible behavior as a part of the society? Because again, it's not about women's safety in the bars, but it's across.
Absolutely.
And I will come to the question to Venkat on that as well.
Well, safety is the center of it. Just like everything else, anything after a certain hour, which is usually people go to bars in the evening, after 8 p.m., after 9, etc., after work. You will see that hesitance in the larger sense of especially in where you have to take a cab, who's dropping you, who's coming to pick you. You have to find someone. You have to find a male to do those things. So it's usually a tougher one for women because obviously it's in the night. The consumption in the bars happens in the night. And at the retail space, The modern retail stores are far nicer now. In the malls that you see, they are very, very inclusive. There are some women we've seen who are selling now in the store on the floor, which is such a great thing to see. Very rare, but it's a great thing to see. But yes, like it's a really, really tiny little, fleck of hope there. It's a much larger issue, and it is a lot about safety and security. It's really, I mean, women love drinking as much as men do. Don't confuse the matter there. They enjoy it as much. They appreciate the same as much as men do. And they are going out a lot more than what they used to, at least 5 years ago. But at the same time, we don't see there's absolutely no help coming from the outside to say that if there is better security, are the markets better lit, it's better policed. It's all very shady in terms of the space.
So it comes back to the society, and Venkat, we've known each other for the last 30 years, and you've been writing about the social issues, the politics of this country, the prohibitions, the elections, and how the society has changed in the last 30 years. Some of the barriers which I want to specifically stress on are about the behavior about responsible drinking then and now, has it changed over the last 30 years? Do you see that change? And number two, do you see women, issues which are, of course, a big social issue right now and talked about? How do we relate it about their safety because they have equal rights and they want to go to the bars, and how do we inculcate the responsibility in that arena? I would like to know your thoughts about it.
Thank you, Deepak. Firstly, a clarification. I was first post editor till 3 days ago. Now I'm moving on, so I'm going to another group. But then, with an addition, former first post editor, I can continue. I don't know why I'm here, firstly. I'm totally unsuited for the discussions here. Everybody has their credentials, so I have to establish my credentials before I speak on this topic.
Yes, sir.
My encounter with alcohol industry dates back to 35 years ago, when I had just landed a good job at the Indian Express at a very young age. So my friends, 10 of them, forced me into throwing them a party. I said, okay, you're welcome, come home. They said, we'll come home only if you give us booze. I said, okay, I'll give you booze. I had no idea about what is beer, what is rum, what is whiskey, no idea at all. So my best advisor was my driver, a guy called Bidut Bhattacharya, who loved his tarra by night and woke up with bloodshot eyes in the morning. So I asked him, yeah, people are coming, what should we buy? So he said, you don't worry, just give me the money, I'll go buy. So he came back, 10 people. I think he came back with some 5 bottles of rum and 2 bottles of beer, peak summer. He told me to put all the rum in the fridge and beer outside. So my friends came and they gave me all kinds of galis and went back. So that is my credentials about alcohol industry. Thankfully, I'm here to talk more about the social issues, I suppose. From a lot of watching in the last 35 years of writing this, we have, I think, I must have been some late 20s when I first wrote about the complete irony of the Excise and Prohibition Commissioner being the same. On one hand, his responsibility was tell you not to drink, on the other hand, to count the millions that he was making. Right? I think we have been conflicted on alcohol in many, many ways. I don't know, and frankly, everything comes back to us putting the onus on the wrong persons, or putting the levers in the wrong person's hands. What I mean by that is that we are totally mixed up in terms of respect, responsibility, and regulation. What my family should be doing, what my father should be doing, the government is trying to do. And this has been for ages. Why should the government tell me, we are discussing the age. I don't know what age is perfect for anything. I don't know if 18 is the right age for voting. I don't know if 25 is the right age for drinking. Some scientist will tell you that, okay, at this point of time, I'm sure there are scientific reasons for what we say, these things, but can any scientist tell me that 17 years, 364 days is the wrong time to drink, and 17 years, 365 days is the right time to drink? So I don't think there is a certain amount of gray area there also. But I think the basic question comes to what is the role of the family? When you replace the family with the government, you will have the mess that we have been having and will continue to have forever. I will go back to what used to be my family. My father was an occasional drinker. Not daily. Once a month or so, he would collect all his friends, and then we would know a particular Saturday or a Sunday was what he would call a drink party. So his friends would come every day to discuss politics, but one particular day would be a drink party when you know that they would have drinks. We liked it because for 1 week before the drink party, my father would be in good mood. Right? So we could get away with anything. But the fact that they could have it only once and we couldn't be anywhere in the vicinity while he drank, we couldn't see him drinking. Right? So these are taboos that we introduce right in the unit. The first unit of any government is a family. That unit is screwing my mind up right from maybe from 6 or 7. I'm supposed to think that drinking is so dangerous, drinking is so bad. Why the hell are you drinking? Right? So somebody mentioned that right now. So I think it's a difficult task. How does the industry or the government change the way families think? Well, tough, but you do not make it worse. Like, I do not understand dry days. What are dry days? What do you achieve by dry days? Why should I give up drinking? I don't drink, as I told you, as in, once again, in India, drinking, I think somebody in the first panel mentioned, you can drink anything. You can drink water, you can drink juice, you can drink alcohol. But in India, drinking is only associated with alcohol, right? So, why should I give up alcohol on one particular day? Will it matter to Mahatma Gandhi, wherever his soul is, that I did not drink on his birthday or in his death anniversary? What is the logic? Why can't I instead give up dinner for a day? Or why can't I undertake to not jump a red light or on that particular day? What is this connection between respect to Gandhiji? Maybe Gandhiji, you will say, okay, he wanted prohibition, so that is a direct link. But on Baba Sahib Ambedkar's day also you don't drink. You mentioned 56 dry days. Well, why is that? In one of the states.
One of the states. So, festivals.
Yeah.
1st and 7th of a month.
Yeah. So, Independence Day, Republic Day. So I just don't understand. What else do you give up? Why do you give up only alcohol that particular day? And how does it enhance the reputation of the nation or the individual that you're giving it up for? Like if you go to Gaya for the spiritual year of your parents, you're supposed to give something up there. So you will be surprised how many people give up brinjal, because nobody likes brinjal. Everybody in our family, because before we go there, we decide, okay, boss, what don't you like? What don't you like? What don't you like? Brinjal. Okay, brinjal is the one that we'll give up, right? So why should I give up alcohol in respect for anything at all? Right? Why don't I give up anything else? So I think that the whole concept of dry day, if there is an industry and media, collaboration to actually question the very basis of a dry day. What is a dry day? Then the other connection between a dry day, that's the only reason why I would say that you should bring the alcohol imbibing age to 18, is that during elections, you impose prohibition, right? So you are directly saying that alcohol and election and the right to vote are linked. So in which case, make it 18, no? Right? If you can vote at 8, then let me also drink at 18. And that legally this country admits that there is a connection. The election commission, the excise department, the government ban drinking because people, it's assumed that you bribe your voters through alcohol, right? So if there is such a great connection, then that's the other reason. So I'm saying that till the time that we have governments getting into this, see, this is a matter of choice. That's where I come in as a journalist. What I would defend in every platform like this is the right to choice. What do you call, cloudy as these age fixations are, as I said, I don't even know if 18 is the right age. Can it be 10? Because the populations are changing. Our children are far smarter and brighter than we were at their age. So is 18 the right one? Because 18 was determined when Rajiv Gandhi, in 84 or something. Before that, it was 21. So is 18 the right age? I don't know. I'm not a great believer in this fixing a certain age for certain things to do. So, but be that as it may, you have what you have. Then in which case, think of getting some sense into these prohibitions, this age group fixing and all that. So till the time that we give the reins to the government to decide, I don't think anything will happen. Then the challenge becomes very, very unmanageable. How do you get into each home and change that thinking of that home? It's a process. It's what social change is. I think each one of you have been talking about it. Slowly, it used to be a taboo for a 14, 15-year-old boy to drink. Forget about girls drinking. It used to be unheard of, and I think families would kill each other for that. So now that is changing too. My children, I don't drink, my wife doesn't drink, my children drink with me. There's no problem. I suppose at the level of each one of us, we have seen and we have encouraged those changes because we do not attach taboo with alcohol. Right? I think that is the only way forward. How do we speed it up? Well, it's a very complicated question because, as I said, it has to go to the very basic unit of a country, which is the family. Unless we change our own thinking, I suppose you look half my age. So when these parents are in control of the society, I think it's a matter of time. I'm better than my father. My children will obviously be better than me in terms of how do they see alcohol. I suppose that's the big change that will come. I think it's a matter of about waiting it out now. Society is changing, it's changing faster. Internet is making it very, very, it's amplifying it many times over. I suppose good days are here. The rest of it, the excise and all the troubles that I've been hearing is actually eye-opener for me. I saw a lot of stories to do. Mainstream media stays away from alcohol completely. Sure. Yeah. I will.
Absolutely.
See. The problem seems to be, once again, the government getting into it. Media will be interested in stories if they also can find advertisers. Right? And you people are useless to me. Yeah. Yes. Of course, we have also sold a whole lot of music discs and bottled water and all that. But that's another abomination.
Right.
Alcobev cannot advertise. I don't know how and when that will change, but needs to change.
No, even so, thank you. I think very frank and open discussion and very frank views about the change, very slow change in the society, and the fact that, as Shashi Tharoor had once mentioned, we are in a pluralistic society, which is not singular, and don't treat India as one. There are two Indias, and there are many Indias, and that this change will be slow. You talked about drink better and not drink more. I think that is definitely coming across, but we have miles to go before we achieve. But of course, I would like to open one or two questions before we close the panel discussion. We have? Okay, yes.
You know, the link between domestic violence and alcohol is obviously there. But have you done any study to look at whether in dry states reported domestic violence has come down? Not that reported domestic violence is any indicator, but just from that point, has it come down for anyone who wants to take that?
Anybody who has seen? Yeah.
I can come last because I've just spoken a lot.
What about?
I don't have any data, right? But I can just sort of, from my experience in the industry, and I can just really talk about India, and I've sort of been running large businesses. I look at Goa as a state, right? Goa as a state, again, I go back because the Portuguese influence in the 1960s sees the least amount of domestic violence, right? The least amount of domestic violence. And that's one small correlation I can draw, right? So where people are liberal, you're not putting alcohol behind bars, right? It's out in the open. I'm not committing a crime by drinking alcohol. If I drink excess, it's not good. But if I'm putting it out, there's nothing wrong in drinking, right? Then in those societies, you can draw some correlation. You look at Europe again, I'm not saying that domestic violence doesn't exist there, but probably be less than places where you're putting it behind a parda. Anything put behind a parda, I think, to me, generates excess.
Well, Bishanji would like to touch upon something over here.
Sure.
See, Deepak, I think we have missed talking about how the industry at large, civil society, and the government can join hands to promote responsible drinking in the country. Because, it's a very difficult task to promote responsible drinking in the country. This is one thing, I think the country where people drink like a fish, they need to be educated how to hold their drinks. We still don't know how much drink is good for us, how much is not good for, as you rightly talked about it earlier. Speaking to the High Commissioner of Fiji, Excellency Yogesh Punja, he told me that in Fiji, it's a 21 years age of legal drinking age, but 18 years is the voting age of people can buy drink and drink it. See, this is how the Pradeep said that how an evolved society reacts to a drink. They don't go berserk like we do in the country.
Yeah, it's a way of life.
You tell me.
You see, yeah.
Tell me what's a way forward, because we have not discussed that. Because Pradeep, Meenakshi, Anand.
No, so very fair point. I wish, you've been as a part of the government, sir. So I think I wish you were here on the panel, because one thing which is for sure is that how can all stakeholders, especially leading from the government side, encourage the responsible drinking behavior? Because at the end, the government tells the industry tries to work with the consumers. The fact is that we all in the industry are trying to, in our own small way, do this effort. How does that effort become bigger and larger? And sir, I would like to know from you first, and then come to my fellow panelists.
Just as an observation, if you look at Diageo, below that it's written celebrating life. The younger generation that currently is drinking, coming to your bars and looking for the higher quality drinks, they're educated and they understand the pros and cons of the responsible drinking, or for that matter sharing a ride and all of that. This is coming through. But I think there is at this moment the Gen X that or for that matter a farmer that works hard all day and wants to relax in the afternoon. He used to in the earlier days get a joint, marijuana, to relax. Today he doesn't have that access, so he goes and buys a little bottle and drinks it, and that's where some of the problems are lying. So we have different tiers. In Fiji, for that matter, we have an alternative to the alcohol, and if you read the magazine after page 52, there's an article on people having kava, which is this scene here. Kava is a relaxant. They would sit around villages, even young kids as young as 16 or 17 would have that too. It's not seen as alcohol, but it is used in US in pills and all that to relax. So it slows you down rather than hypes you up. So we have an alternative. I'm not sure what the answer for India is. But one of the problems you would have is that at the moment you have more restrictions, more price hikes on alcohol. People will move to alternatives. I've seen on the streets of India
Absolutely.
people sniffing glue and alcohol. I mean benzene, I think it is, but alternate drugs.
Yeah. So no. So I still remember the days of dry days in Delhi, where there was a Ayurvedic drink called surra, and the surra would get all the bottles would finish from a chemist shop on that particular day because people needed that. So it was like so. So the point, Venkat, I think you are more well versed about the social part, the government, the lawmakers. What do you feel that how do we together work in society to overcome this responsible drinking myth, which is now saddled only with the industry at the moment?
See, being a journalist, I'm of the firm opinion that governments can never do right. Especially in this context. You're creaming both sides. You're creaming the business, you're creaming the consumer. So government is only worried about how much money it is taking legally and illegally. Right? So just let's not hope the government will do anything at all for you or for the consumer. So it's, once again, then it goes back to, okay, who does it? I suppose, as I said, media. Thankfully, whole lot of media is going out of media's hands too. It's all out there in social media. Social media is a great, amplifier of change, and that's happening in a good way. Then finally, I think, Bishan, you asked, my personally why I don't drink is a family story. We were very close to our grandmother, our grandfather, the paternal grandmother. Grandfather had died. He apparently was the epitome of irresponsible drinking, would beat her every day. And she was such a darling for all of us. We were about 10, 20 kids, and she would tell us phenomenal stories. And she was goddess for us. The fact that somebody was drinking something that was prohibited in our minds, and that led to beating her up, was a no-no for me for alcohol. I've stayed off alcohol because of this story. And many in our family have stayed off alcohol for this reason. So it's all about how you imbibe your lessons and how those lessons are not distorted by your seniors in the family. I suppose it's as I said, it's not an easy answer. It is for us to now think that leave the government out of this. They will never do anything right. For that reason, I respect governments that completely abolish. At least they're taking a stand. They're taking a stand that Bihar, for example, it said that we do not need this 5,000 crore rupees of excise. We will impose prohibition. The fact that prohibition doesn't exist because there is huge bootlegging industry that develops is another story altogether. But at least morally, officially, the government has said that we do not want this money. Fine. At least you've taken a stand. But for the rest of it, where there is no prohibition, we have prohibition and we have alcohol freely available. So it's a dichotomy. So governments will never solve this for us. I think it is for civil society, media, and the industry to get together and imbibe as much of that spirit of responsibility and freedom. But when we say that a child should be free to maybe not even, if not drink, at least sip the father's drink once, no, what is the big deal? It is finely colored water to me. I really don't think of alcohol as anything other than that, right? So I think it is, the sooner we kind of, you will have to deal with government in terms of the excise laws and all the problems that I heard, that good luck to you. But for the rest of it, I think leave the government out of it. They'll never do anything right.
Yeah. I think you're right in saying that because they're looking at it from both sides. At one end they're trying to bring about prohibition, but at the other end they're also it's one of the largest contributors to state funds, state exchequers, etc. I think, and this might be a bit radical, I guess, to think about it, but if you look at adults, and adults, I'm saying anyone 18 and over, etc., to try and bring about social and cultural change there is always a lot harder, which is why we end up policing them, right? Whereas now, if you take the example of other cultural changes that we've seen over the past few years, if you look at firecrackers, right? That movement's actually been led through schools, because in schools suddenly kids have been talking about the bad effects, the harmful effects, and they are, like you said, they're far smarter than us. So they've actually, seen the harmful effects, and they've actually gone back home and discussed this at home, saying, guys, why do we need to buy firecrackers? Let's not, right? This whole say no to crackers over the past 15, 20 years has been going on, and we've been talking about sweatshops, etc. And, so that's a, correct, and that's a Fit India. That's a cultural change that's happened, and it's stemmed really from kids. Now, is it wrong to talk to kids about harmful effects of alcohol or responsible drinking? I don't think so. We talk to them about sex education, right? Much before they're having sex themselves, presumably. Why not talk about other cultural things, including tobacco, including alcohol, including other things, right? Domestic violence being one of them. What can they do about this as well? I think that's potentially a place where, it's completely untapped, because we are so burdened by CBSE and exams and unit tests and marks, etc., that this, and I was talking about this to my parents some time ago, and they said, yeah, during our time, when we were in school, we used to have a class that was mandated actually by CBSE at that time, which just talked about communal behavior, and just talked about how you should be ethically as citizens, as law-abiding citizens, not just 18 or 25 is the legal drinking age, or it talked about cultural issues. You should hold a door open for someone. You should stand at certain times, etc., etc. So personally, and again, like I said, this might be a little bit radical, but accepting the fact that kids are drinking, kids are smoking. Firstly, let's accept that coming to 9th grade and 10th grade, most of your kids will start drinking and smoking, unless that's changed radically since I was in school. Let's accept that and talk about it. Whether you create a formalized discussion or include it in your syllabus or everything, create space to talk about it and talk about it openly, and let them also go home and continue that discussion at home as well, talking about what's right, what's not.
Yeah, and making it more mainstream. Really, it's about that. And making it like a safe zone, so you are okay to share it. That's what I mean. Government did a fantastic job of Fit India, and if they take interest, then why not? So for sure.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
My name is S.P. Chaudhary. I almost spent 50 years in liquor industry. I listening with deep breath, all of you, what is responsible drinking and what is irresponsible drinking. First of all, we are not able to identify who are the irresponsible drinkers.
Who are the?
Irresponsible drinkers. You have word is responsible drinking, but who are the responsible for a non-responsible drinking? We are not identified. People sitting here all, they are not irresponsible drinkers. If you move to Chennai, go to the streets of Chennai, early morning 7 o'clock, 7:30, 8 o'clock, they queue in the liquor shops. Who are the people they are? Having no clothes, just lungi, and carrying a bottle of whiskey they want in their hands. Go to Kerala, early morning 7:30, 8 o'clock. There are shops and shops, and you find queues and queues. They are irresponsible drinkers, and we are not able to identify them, how to stop that. That is because of illiteracy. In our community, in our society, where we live, we are all educated, we may have maybe 0.1, 0.01% irresponsible drinkers, which I have seen it. Even the doctors drink irresponsible many a times. I have seen the parties there. I have seen many doctors while in the parties, they become totally drunk while they come out of the parties. I have seen many very, very good parties in my life, a span of 50 years, where out of 20, one will also be drinking 5 packs, 6 packs, and getting free whiskey, let me drink it. That's irresponsible drinking. But actually, if you believe my words, nobody of us is an irresponsible drinker. Where we are sitting and learning all this. We have to find a media, whether through social media, whether with the help of the government, or with the help of the big companies like Diageo or Seagram. People have to take lead and then go place to place, meet the governors, meet the chief minister. So we must start this responsible drinking for irresponsible drinking people. Again, the word is, who are the real irresponsible drinkers? And what we are sitting here, we are not. And the question is, we have to teach the people who are really irresponsible drinkers, and you cannot teach them by giving lectures here and there, anywhere. We can discuss 100 things here. How can happen, this can happen, but does it lead to that people? No. There, we need a march. We must join hands and go place to place and stop the irresponsible drinking. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Very good input, sir. We are joined by Dr. G.V. Rao, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court of India. Thanks for, we were in the last leg of the session. I wish I could sum up the discussion, what my fellow panelists said. But just to give a sense on, we have talked about the barriers of responsible consumption. We have talked about who are the irresponsible people. And, sorry. Right. Absolutely. So, and the research outcomes have been about legal drinking age, have been about better places, more open license policy. I would like to ask you a question on the legal drinking age, sir, on what should be the legal drinking age? Why is there a disparity? Why states have, why is that Punjab Act there in 6 states, whereas the other states have gone and put their own policy and own wheels? Of course, there's 18, there is 21, and there's 25. So I would like to have your view, sir. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I must apologize for having come late. You see, weekdays are always difficult for lawyers to show up at events, and I had hearings in the morning, and some of which were suddenly came up. And as you know, some of the matters come on the previous evening. Thanks to, this event and to Mr. Bishan, who has invited me here. And I'm sure there must have been some very enlightened deliberations that have taken place. I've had a good occasion to review the gamut of things with respect to legal age of drinking, the ill effects, the benefits, policy decisions, the laws, all of this. According to me, the reason first, let me come to the reason, that you see alcohol consumption is controlled by, in our constitution, 2 lists. List 1 is one in which all the central government can make laws. List 2 is are the items on which states can make laws. So alcohol is in both list 1 and list 2. No, not concurrent, but separately in list 1 and list 2. Concurrent is where both can make, but it has not been included in concurrent. On the contrary, it is included in the 7th schedule in list 1 and list 2 of the constitution. And therefore, both states get to make laws on this. Primary, some excise duties and all, now that will become GST and all of that. By list 1, the center is more interested in revenues. The state tweaks it in different other ways and looks at it from a different perspective, including prohibition. See, prohibition originates from our directive principles of state policy, which is Article 47, where it is actually mandated in the constitution that every state will strive towards prohibition. And that's that's not necessarily the reason. In Gujarat, for instance, prohibition was imposed because of country-made liquor, where 400 people died in the early 50s and 60s. Because country-made liquor is one of the most serious problems in alcohol consumption in India. Yeah. Which is, illicit, I'm sorry. Country-made liquor which has got illicit components. I mean, not country-made liquor as it ought to be. What happens in country-made brew is, since there is no proper regulation, they use industrial alcohol, they'll use all kinds of substances which affects the health. So therefore, that is one of the problems where we are talking about. Now, when we look at alcohol policy, we have to look at it from various perspectives. One of the things is that we can't look at it simply from an urban perspective. We have to look at it from both urban and rural perspective, semi-urban, all of these things. And age groups, of course, and level of development. Because we are, of course, we have come a long way in the last 2 decades in terms of our development, in terms of our per capita, GDP, everything. But overall, if you look at it, if you look at literacy levels, if you look at rural poverty and all, you will find that still it's a very serious problem, as a result of which Gujarat, Bihar, Nagaland, there are about 6-7 states which have imposed prohibition because it has had an ill effects. Now, I wouldn't say, now if you look at crime rates, for instance, very interesting study, I've looked at crime rates. Crime rates, about 30% of crime rates are all alcohol induced. Now, but that doesn't mean to say that if you impose imposition, crime will go, first point. Because 70% is without alcohol consumption. If you look at it in an objective percent, then it is the majority is without alcohol induced. Yeah. Also, if you have imposed complete prohibition, of course, there is a possibility of it coming down somewhat, but it may not be totally eliminated. But if you also look at the benefits of alcohol consumption, for instance, there are health benefits, there are, in terms of psychological benefits, a lot of people perhaps really require alcohol, which I have seen, which sort of calms their daily pressures. Studies have found that small quantities of alcohol every day can be consumed, which could be beneficial for the health. I don't know if it's teetotaler. Anyway, now, therefore, no, you have come to a point where in the United States they have legalized drugs for medicinal use and purposes. That's a separate thing. We'll discuss that if at all. But the important thing is age. Now, in our country, for instance, Maharashtra is a very interesting way. It says that beer and wine can be given to 18-year-olds, and then hard liquor to 21, and finally, a lot of states, if you see, a lot of states, if you see, there they have said quantity of alcohol. Beer and wine, quantity of alcohol is lesser, therefore lesser age groups can also consume, they can purchase and consume, and it can be served to them in restaurants and other places. And for hard liquor, they have moved to 21 and 25. A lot of states have 25 as an age limit. Now, see, these things we cannot have uniformity because it's both in list 1 and list 2. But the only thing that states will endeavor, when you look at it from a policy perspective, all legislation is basically socially beneficial legislation. Does it benefit our society? And how best does it benefit our society? So no government anywhere is going to bring about any legislation or policy which can be seen as not socially beneficial but deleterious, etc. That is why now you have found that smoking is across the plain band, and now you see this. You have seen such great rates of downfall of smoking, and of course then there is. They also say you put pictures on the cartons of the cigarettes, etc. And even on liquor, they say liquor is injurious to health, etc. But now a very interesting thing that has come to my mind, and I hope all of you will give your views on that, is that why can't we have a sort of a guideline educating thing which will be there on every liquor shop. It can be available in a small booklet, which is a sort of a form of education to any person who comes to buy alcohol. Because it's very important that the person, not just a label, but if everybody was to endeavor, I don't think it would cost so much to prepare a small booklet. Like whenever you buy a product, you have a booklet that comes with it saying you use the points, electricity, blah, 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 and all those things, which are sometimes even 2 pages, 3 pages, small, thin sheets of paper which give you directions how to use an appliance, for instance. You buy a toaster or an oven or whatever, iron, it comes with a small booklet kind of thing. It is a useful guide to people. But when you want to try to make, consumption of alcohol, somebody was just saying, for people in a responsible way, some kind of an information booklet plus some huge posters could be pasted on these liquor shops everywhere by law, which will make everybody aware. Now, if you look at it, smoking, we have used it very effectively in smoking, where I have found, literally, it has come to 1%, 2%. Don't mind smokers. I used to be one till about 10, 12 years from my high school, then thereafter. But it was a great pleasure, and I can talk a lot about what a pleasure smoking has been. Therefore, an enlightened approach to consumption of alcohol can deal with those effects where we can say that 30% crime rates are increasing. Why is 30% in general taken as a benchmark for crime rates? And in many enlightened societies, there is no ban on alcohol consumption and there is no crime rate. For instance, in Netherlands, they are giving up the prisons, etc., and they're saying that we don't have any requirement for the prisons because there's no crime rate and both there is regulation and free availability of alcohol, but some kind of regulation in consumption of, say, marijuana, etc., medicinal things and whatever, recreational you may call it, and no crime rate. So therefore, it is incorrect to say alcohol automatically will induce crime. Yeah, that's a wrong perception. And I'll tell you a very interesting thing. As a young man, I grew up in the city of Delhi. I went to Army Public School and all. So I started consuming alcohol maybe just when I was 28 or 29 after a few years of practice, because I always thought it's important to be responsible and earn your money before you drink and all of that. But I told a friend, and this is very important, and my friend, that's the most important thing. So therefore, it is a wrong perception to have that if we were to, do, say, let's say, tweak the age or any of those things, if we were to, please tell me if I have to. I'm sorry, I may have taken a little more time having come late. And I remember Professor Upendra Bakshi, who came late to one function, and he said, I'm sorry for having come late, but you may not want me to be sorry for having come at all. And he concluded his speech for that. So therefore, I would say that this kind of education is important. We could have it in our liquor shops, give it a pamphlet, have more of these things, which will help. Thank you so much.
Very, very enlightening. I think a round of applause for all panelists. I think the fact is that in today's scenario, there is self-regulation we are talking about. We're talking about civil society. We're talking about people who are, wanting to put along with the lawmakers. Yes, you are absolutely right. I've tried it I worked with the Delhi AAP government, and I tried to reason out with them that, look, 25 is an age barrier. They privately agree. But at the same time, there are always something which is in a public perception that this is a taboo. Then people don't take decisions. So the question now for us is that how UP was able to take and dismantle some very tough excise law and policy. Absolutely. So how should other states emulate them? There will have to be people who will have to take bullets on their chest and say, okay, this is the way I have. As a part of the industry, I can only say I work with ISWAI on a project, and we have started in a very small way a campaign a social media campaign, #NotOut. It doesn't talk about responsibility alone on drinking, but it's an overall responsibility. Project B, we did a campaign. We got 100,000 pledges last month. We are hoping that as and when, of course, the Diageo campaign, Drink and Drive has had 2 million pledges. Anand Mahindra tweeted it. So I think there are people who are tweeting it about these campaigns. There are opportunities to do well. There are opportunities to do and collaborate and co-create. And we all think the time has come that the campaigns of Drink and Drive, taking up to overall responsibility campaign, taking to these booklets which you have said, talking about how outlets should function in the future, I think, and taking the level of Netherlands, I think that is something. Anything I missed, Venkat?
I just wanted to add, the gentleman pointed out, where is the irresponsible drinking? I think it's very important to address that question. And that brings me back to what you said about the AAP government. The government itself is basically made of people like us, but why is it that they are unable or unwilling to implement, right? Make this open, say, drinking society, if I may say that. Because the link between the vote of the female, the low economic strata females, receive prohibition very, very positively because they are at the receiving end of this irresponsible drinking. So that is the nexus between irresponsible drinking and elections and governments. And that is why governments will never cross the Rubicon. I think that is where I think we really need to figure out how do you then explain to those women that the prohibition doesn't help them at all, right? So I think that's where the big catch is.
Anybody wants to add something? All right. Thank you.
Yeah. Make just one quick point. You see, advertising of alcohol is prohibited in, by law, and you can't have advertising anywhere about any alcohol. I think if the alcohol sellers associations, etc., were to make a representation to say that we would like to have our campaigns which could be sponsored by XYZ brand about responsible drinking and responsible every other activity, driving, etc. And would you let us use some little space to say that we are the sponsors of this? I think you may have a chance of getting greater visibility at the same time educating the people in civil society. Thank you.
Thank you. So this is the campaign I talked about. This is campaign which India needs, is if I can take a pledge, and that's something which is on social media. It needs to be there in media, it needs to be there in your life. And how do we make that as a way of life? Thank you so much, sir. You added so much value. And sir, I think for raising that point, Bishan, thank you so much for, absolutely, sir. And a warm applause for our fellow panelists for contributing so many points. Thank you so much.
Well, this panel discussion was such a delight. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'd request all of you to please step forward for a group picture, and can I now call upon His Excellency High Commissioner of Fiji, Mr. Yogesh Punja, to join us on the stage for the group picture. Well, as the panel rightly highlighted, it is all about educating, it's all about self-awareness, and definitely we have many Indias in one India where your father would buy a bottle of Glenlivet and gift it to you. So yes, we can certainly say India is changing, and this has been rightly and certainly highlighted by this wonderful panel discussion. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. I'd request all of you to be seated. And we've been talking about this wonderful social awareness topic of not drink and drive. And ladies and gentlemen, we would want all of you to take a pledge on this day that we would not drink and drive. And those who are with me on this, give me a wave. Come on. Let's take this opportunity of Spiritz 2019 to take a pledge that we will not drink and drive, and let's make India a more safer India, and let's take a road to safety. Yes, and how many of you are hungry? Give me a wave. Come on. And how many of you are very hungry? You can wave with both of your hands. Okay, so because I'm going to wave with you together. So ladies and gentlemen, we would here break for lunch, and we will see you on the other side of this break at 2:20 p.m. for the post-lunch session. So yes, 1 hour from now almost, let's meet all of you on the other side of this break, and be with us, be right with us, because we are live. It is not just about people present in this room. Thousands of people across the globe are watching us live throughout the day. We are live over social media, Facebook and YouTube. So yes, be right with us, be right here, and we are going to have an exciting day ahead, and I'd request all of you to please proceed for lunch. Thank you.